Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today on this webinar. My name is Ricky and I'm a digital business advisor at Business Station. And today I'm going to show you how to optimize your website to hopefully improve your Google search rankings. And you can do this by following some relatively easy to implement steps, which we'll go through one by one. So by doing this, hopefully you can improve your Google search engine rankings, like I said, or Bing search engine rankings. And by doing that, you'll attract more website visitors, which in turn should result in higher sales, more leads, more subscribers, or whatever your conversion goal might be. So we only have an hour. There's a fair bit to go through. So let's get cracking. But before I do, you don't necessarily have to remember everything I go through today. There will be a recording of this sent to you, and some people might be watching the recording of this. I also provide a link at the end of this presentation to all the resources I refer to in this presentation. And also I provide a pretty simple to follow 12-step guide or checklist. So you don't have to do this all at once. You can just do one step at a time and improve your SEO that way. If you have any questions, just please, either if you're watching me now live, just throw it into the Zoom chat function if you can, and I'll try and get to your question that way. Or if you're watching a recording, I do provide my email address at the end of this presentation, and you can, feel free to contact me that way if you have any questions. Okay, so let's see what we're going to talk about. So firstly, I'm going to just touch on what SEO is, because not everyone knows exactly what SEO is. So I'll talk about that briefly, and then answer the question of where you can start, because that's a common question I get. So where do I start? We'll answer that. Then we'll talk about just the basic SEO things you need to do to improve your overall visibility and to attract more visitors. And then, like I said, we'll have a 12-point action plan at the end of this. Okay, so what is SEO? Very simply, it's about understanding what your potential customers are searching for and including these search phrases in your website's content. So that's one side of it. And that's what you might often hear referred to as on-page SEO versus off-page SEO, which is basically the next thing. So this is about building your website or your domain, your brand's authority around a particular topic or subject or industry or product. So if you sell widgets, for example, you want to make sure that you're an authority around widgets. And how does Google work out if you're an authority? Well, it's based on what's known as your domain authority, your DA. And your DA, basically, you improve slowly over time. And you can do that through optimizing your website like we're going to talk about today, but also by getting links from other websites, ideally with a higher DA than you, and ideally from your particular industry. But it doesn't necessarily need to be just your industry. It can also be from just general business directories. We'll talk about that. And thirdly, your website needs to be fast. So you can do all of these other things, but if your website's super slow, it's not going to help. Your rankings will drop dramatically and people will just not visit your site because it will be too slow, particularly if they're on a mobile device. So there are three things that Google and Bing take into account when they basically want to rank pages on a search engine result versus or when someone's searching for a particular search term. So the first thing is relevance. So relevance is, like I said, it's on-page SEO, and it's about ensuring that you're matching your content on your website matches what people are searching for. The closer the match, the better. And that's why people will sometimes have landing pages. So you can direct people to a specific page that's optimized around a particular piece of content. Authority is the other thing, like I just mentioned. So this is often called off-page SEO. And this is really where they want to understand how authoritative your website is for a particular search term. So I often tell people this is a bit like having a research paper if you're an academic having a research paper peer reviewed. What it does is it builds trust in your particular research paper, and people can then, read it knowing that, it's been verified in inverted commas by other organizations that are in authority. And then the third thing might also be, there would be things like social signals. So are people following you? Are they sharing your content? The third thing is performance. So how fast is your website? It's also security. But if we just put security to a side, assuming you're using strong passwords and you've got an SSL certificate, using capture on forms and that sort of thing, performance is really the critical thing. So we'll talk a bit about how we can improve that, or even see if you have an issue in the first place. So optimizing an SEO, website's SEO, which is what we're going to talk about today, is about really developing headlines, body text or descriptions of products, for example, metadata, which is your meta title, meta descriptions, alt image tags, and links, and ideally based around a keyword phrase. So on every page, you would identify what keyword phrase you want to rank for on that particular page, and start to build content around that. And it needs to be unique. Can't be the same keyword phrase for every page. And like I keep saying, it also needs to be fast, and it needs to perform well on all devices. So that's what SEO is in a nutshell, and we'll talk further a little bit about that. But why would you want to do it in the first place? I mean, you can just go and spend advertising money instead. It's going to get you results. You'll get people coming to your website, but you're constantly shelling out for advertising. And some advertising is dependent on some of the things we're going to do in terms of SEO. So if you're doing Google Ads is very much around search terms, relevance to the landing page people are going to. So you still need to optimize your page around particular search terms. So why do SEO? So a recent study by SEMrush are just an audit tool, if you like, the leading audit tool, or one of the leading ones that SEO agencies might use if they're providing SEO services to customers like yourselves. What they did, they examined 13 different e-commerce verticals, and they found that of those 13, 5 of them were dominated by organic search. Dominated, that's well in excess of 50% of their traffic came from organic search results. And for 13 of them, all 13 of them, organic plus direct traffic accounted for more than 80% of all of their website traffic. So it looked something like this. So search for across those 13 e-commerce verticals, search accounted for more than 50% of all traffic coming to their websites. Direct accounted for an additional nearly 30%. So that's where people are directly putting your domain into their search engine, into their search browser, into their browser. Referral, paid traffic, and social traffic. So as you can see here, social traffic, less than 5%, advertising, just over or just under 7%. So that's a good reason why you should do SEO, because if you do it right, it should be the main source of traffic to your website. Another study by Outbrain showed that if you're a content site, such as say a news site or a blog site, for example, or or a media site of any sort, that social media was the #1 driver of traffic to the sites by a long way. So outperformed social media channels by more than 300%. And the other very good reason why you should do it is because it's free if you do it yourself. And I'm a big believer in you doing it yourself, because at the end of the day, I think SEO is very much about, a lot of it is about content, product expertise that you have as the product or the business owner. It makes sense that you should probably do the SEO. And what it does is it brings you recurring, high converting traffic on an ongoing basis that you don't need to pay for. So with that in mind, let's look at a Google search page, because even though, some of us might look at one of these every single day, I just want to show you some of the things that maybe you're not aware of. So I searched for women's summer dress, and this is a screen recording I did earlier. So I'm just going to pause it. So you can see here the ads, which I'm just showing you there. So there are ads for that particular product, Google ads based on, or shopping ads based on search terms. And then the organic results, which is what we're basically talking about in this talk today. Google My Business, or you'll Google your business profile on Google, and then more organic results. So already we've seen 3 places where you can potentially rank on a page on Google. So there's the organic searches, there's the advertising results, and there's the Google My Business page. But there's more than that. If you go to the menu at the top, you'll see there's also a shopping tab. So if you, for example, sell products that are suitable to the shopping tab, which I think would be a lot of products, then you should have your products listed on there. So I'm just going to try and answer this question. Yes, definitely. So the question, if you can't see that, is whether you should, either do it yourself or get someone to do some of it for you and then you just tweak it. And yeah, I think that's also a legitimate thing, but you don't necessarily have to pay someone to do it all the time, because it's not necessarily a technical thing. Knowing how to do it is one thing, but then it's about product knowledge and expertise in what you do as a product or service knowledge, or what you do as a brand. So that's why I think it's important or possible for owners. But yeah, and once again, not everyone has the time as well. So that's another thing that you need to take into account. So yes, I definitely recommend getting a professional to do it, and then maybe just tweaking that a little bit. So what I was just showing you there was that there's the shopping tab. I'm just going to unpause that if I can. So there's the shopping tab. Now, you might not know that the first row on that tab is actually, that is advertising, but everything below that is free. So you can get free listings on shopping through just setting up a Google Merchant Center account and listing your products there. So not everyone has products like this, so I understand that, but I'm just showing you that there are other ways that you can get visibility, if you like, because that's what it's all about, and potentially, and hopefully, traffic and conversions. There's also images. So if you're an artist or even fashion, for example, then images is another way that you might be able to also get found, and also to just raise that visibility overall. And so this is about using those key terms in your image descriptions, and we'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, there's videos, which I don't even talk about here, news, but videos, including YouTube and the like. So there's a lot of ways that you can use these search engines to really raise your visibility and outcompete your competitors, because really not a lot of people do this very well. So if you can do it a little bit better than your competitors, it gives you a competitive edge. So that's what I believe most people should do, because it is a much neglected marketing platform. Okay, so that's what it is, and that's why I think you should be doing it. So now let's talk about how you can identify what you need to fix and where you need to start. So I recommend the place to start is to do an audit. And there are lots of free audit tools out there. Some are better than others. And the basic free ones are just going to give you a superficial look at your website, usually just your home page, which after all is your most important page. So they'll look at your home page, and the best ones will ask you to use a keyword that you want to rank for. So I'll just show you one here, for example. This is SEO Review Tools. This company is called SEOreviewtools.com. They have a number of tools, including this one. And you put your URL in, put the keyword in you want to rank for, and click check or perform check, and it'll go off, and it will usually take a couple of minutes. Now, there are lots of these tools out there. You just need to find one that, even the premium ones, you can usually do a free audit on there. And the more complex they are, the longer they'll take. So some of them do take a couple of hours, but this one will take a couple of minutes, and it will tell you some errors and some warnings that you could have a look at, and they'll list them. So let's just have a look at these. So I'm just going to pause it here. So the very first one, it says you need to improve the number and quality of linking websites pointing to your domain. So this is off-page SEO. This is the links I was talking about before. So they're basically saying, we don't know, how credible you are as a brand or how authoritative you are in this for this particular search term. So we suggest getting some more backlinks. So we'll talk about that shortly. So that's one thing. The second thing it says is you need to add an H1 heading to your web page. So, I mean, that's pretty important because that's telling the visitor, but also search engines, what the website's about. Your title tag is too long. So your title tag we'll talk about as well. Not using the focus keyword. Your meta description is too long. Couple of other things. So basically what I'm showing you there is that a lot of it's jargon and it can baffle people because you don't know what those things mean. But what I'll show you today is they're really simple things that you can easily do on any platform that you're using, whether it's WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, Magento, whatever it might be that you're using. Okay, so these audit tools will also show you a range of other things that you might be able to find useful. So what your meta description looks like and what your meta title looks like, etc. So I would recommend starting with an SEO audit tool, and it will give you a list of things that you can start to fix. The other thing you can use, if you do have Google Analytics set up, I would definitely just set that up. Google Analytics will show you what people do on your site. So how they find your site and what they do when they're on your site. So pretty important. And it also tells you a bit about who your customer is, so demographics, etc. So if you do have Google Analytics, I do recommend it, but I'm just going to show you some things that you might find interesting. And this is different to the analytics that you might find, say, for example, Shopify have analytics there. They take a cut down version of this. So I would recommend having your own analytics, accessing your own analytics account directly through analytics.google.com. Anyway, it will show you basically how many visitors you're getting over a certain period and what sort of conversions you're getting from that. And how many, this is just the homepage dashboard, how many visitors you got right now on a particular page. The next thing would be a little snippet of information that you might find interesting and use on your site, insights they call it, where your users are coming from, what time of the day they visit your website, and where they're acquired from. So is it social media, paid advertising, organic, or some other channel like referrals? And you can tunnel down further here and it will tell you whether it's mobile Facebook or Google ads that you're using, or organic search on Google versus, say, organic on Bing. So you can really start to get a feel for where your customers are coming from, what device they're using. So in this case, 82% of the visitors to this website are on mobile devices. So you therefore need to take your mobile visitors very, very seriously. A range of other information that it shows you. Now, just going to show you under audiences here, you can also go down to your audiences and just have a look at who's visiting your website. So this might also pinpoint a couple of interesting things like how people behave, different age demographics behave slightly differently. So for example, this is how many users from each age group, how many were new versus not, sessions, bounce rate. Bounce rate is very important. Just pause it there for a second. Bounce rate is when people come to your site and then they seemingly just leave without doing anything. It's usually a performance issue or just it might not be very mobile friendly, or a range of different things. It might be a pop-up that's stuck there they can't get rid of, but it's usually a performance issue. And now I just want to point out that this bounce rate on this particular example is extremely low. I often see bounce rates of 50, 60, 70, up to 90%. So what that means is 50 to 90% of those websites' visitors are leaving before they engage with the website. So what that would tell you is there's a problem. What's that problem? And you need to identify what it is. Now on here, you can tunnel down by page and seeing if there's any anomalies on a particular page where you've got high bounce rates, for example. You can also see here though, even though these are very low, for some reason, the older demographic or 35 and 65 plus are bouncing a little bit on that page. So is it maybe the font's too small or whatever? I'd need to do some research. So it does tell you some very interesting things as well, gender and a range of other things. So this particular site, all female virtually, with some male, but it would tell you, maybe how male or female are accessing your site or engaging with your site and why they're doing things differently, for example. But more interesting than that, I just want to show you this, this is behavior I'm going to show you now. And it's how people behave on your website. So there's two things I want to show you. They're both very similar. So you could choose a parameter. This particular one, it's the country and then what page they land on and then the subsequent pages they go to. You can change that to another parameter instead of country. Might be what device they're on, for example. Anyway, you can choose lots of different things. Now, I'm just going to go down to a different one, which is very similar, but it's behavior flow. So it's how they're flowing. And I'm going to choose the source that they're coming from. So are they coming from Facebook or Google, for example? And here it shows you exactly where they're coming from and then what pages they go to and then the subsequent pages. The little red arrows you can see there are at each stage. How many drop-offs are you getting at each stage? So a couple of things I just want to bring to your attention, then we'll go to the next slide. So, oops. So firstly, you can see for a start, Google visitors and Facebook visitors are going to completely different pages. And that's partly because of the way people find you. So Google, you might Google, they're searching for something and they'll generally go to your homepage or maybe a subpage like a collections or a category page. Whereas with Facebook, generally you're doing a post promoting, say, a product or a service or a particular page, they click to that and they go to that particular page. So just that alone tells you, you've got two different personas, if you like, and they're landing on two different pages. And then the subsequent pages from there is quite interesting too. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is each of these red arrows is the drop-off rate. So at each stage, you're going to lose users. So we got on the first page, we got 4,500 or 5,000 users or sessions. Nearly half of them dropped off before they went to the next stage. So this just ways that you might be able to identify why that is the case. It could just be that they got the information they needed from your homepage, but it's always a good way just to get some further indications. With this thing here, the platform I'm showing you here, you can isolate particular channels. So I'm isolating Google and I can see which pages they're going to and the subsequent pages they're going to, and maybe work out if there's an issue on any of those particular pages. Okay, so essentially, there are a couple of good ways that you can identify what you need to do from an SEO perspective, but it doesn't matter if all of those things are great, but they'll all be pointing to doing what I'm calling the SEO basics. So we'll just talk about these because you'll probably need to do these anyway. So I'm just going to go through them quickly and then we'll talk about them. So your site structure, just making sure your site is sort of logical. You've got, say, category pages and then products underneath those, or some sort of structure that's logical but also simple. Not 10 layers deep or anything like that. Secondly, you need to identify those keywords that you want to use for individual pages on your site, including individual products or services. And then you go about optimizing your content around those particular, not just the structure. The structure gives you a context around which you're writing your content, but the keyword tells you the content you should be writing about too. So that's optimizing your content. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. Security and performance. I keep harping on about that, but it is important. Links. So getting links to your website, but also having links within your website is very important. And then finally, local SEO. So local SEO really is important, especially if you have local customers you want to attract to your business, or if you have a bricks and mortar store as well, you want them to come to. But it's important, full stop, because even if you're not in that local region, you can still market to a broader audience. But it just helps you, one, with a backlink for a start, if you're getting a link from Google My Business to your site, but also it just raises your visibility. It verifies you as a business if you use Google My Business, and just helps overall. Okay, so let's just talk about site structure and why that's important. It's important because, like I said earlier, it gives your site structure, but it also gives you context around which you can then write content. So this silo is about this, and this silo is about this, etc. So if you then use your keywords as topics, if you like, you can then start to easily write content for your website. The other thing that's very, very important with your structure is what it does is it provides, each of your pages provides authority, for want of a better word, but provides authority to the pages above them. And that's why in a search engine result, your page that's most likely to rank will be your home page. And then secondly would be, say, a product category page or a service page. And then the third thing to rank would be maybe a product. The product might rank more easily if it's a particular brand or, product that they're searching for. But if they're not searching for that particular brand or particular type of product, then your homepage is likely to rank. And it's partly because of this, where each of your hierarchy adds authority to the hierarchy above, right up to the homepage. So in this particular example, the homepage is the authority on this website for computers. The subpages, one of them is the authority for desktop computers, the other is the authority for laptop computers. And then you go down from there, Windows and Apple, desktop, Windows and Apple laptops, for example. The other reason why structure is important is because it makes Google, or it makes it easy for search engines to crawl your site. Now, Google and Bing only have a certain amount of time to search websites, because they have to index every page on the internet. So they can't spend forever on one particular site. So they have a limited crawl bandwidth. And so you want to make sure your site's easily accessible and not too deep, so it's never going to get to the bottom ends of your website. So products that might be way down there, for example. And it's easy for your users also to find it. So the rule of thumb there is 3 clicks away from the homepage should be the maximum people need to go. So keep things simple and scalable, golden rule number 1. And golden rule number 2 is keep every page 3 or fewer clicks from your homepage. A little bit like that structure I showed you before. So that's structure. The second thing is keywords. Now, keywords are important, and we know this for a fact because Google tell us. This is a quote from Google. So the most basic signal that information is relevant, so this is when people are searching for something on a search engine. Google needs to know if a website is relevant to that search query. So the most basic signal is when a web page contains the same keywords as the search query. So it's pretty much common sense. So if someone's searching for something XYZ, then ideally XYZ is on your website, number 1 thing. So if you have an SEO goal, then it should be to try and identify and selectively use, underline that, because you don't want to sound spammy, a target keyword phrase. So a target keyword phrase is like a 3 to 5 word phrase. And you want to identify that for every piece of content that you have on your website. So you might just have a 2-column spreadsheet, your page on one column, each page a product or whatever, and then in the other column, your primary keyword that you want to use for that page. And then what you do is you start to write content around that, for that page, around that particular keyword that you've just identified. So you're going to put it in the title, in the description, for example, in the URL, ideally as well, any image descriptions. So to do that, you need to do some keyword research. And I would, sounds a little bit boring or whatever, but really it's a very important stage and probably something that people least do. So if you could spend even an hour just doing a little bit of keyword research, you'll be in a much better position to understand what each of your pages should be about and what the keyword is that you want that page to rank for. So when you're doing that keyword research, there's 3 things you want to look for. The first thing is how many times is that search word used? How often are people searching that search term? So you can find that out using a number of different research tools. This one is Keyword Planner, which is by Google, and it's free. You just need a Google Ads account. It's actually changed now. It doesn't show you it like this now. It shows you a range. So, 10 to 100 or 1,000 to 10,000. So really you want to get a feel for what words are ranking. And remember, you want to try and be able to, at the end of the day, have a 3 to 5 word phrase for each of your pages. The problem, you'll have the biggest problem usually with the home page, because products or services usually have part of the keyword done for you because they have a product or a service name. But your homepage, you're trying to distill that down, what you do, into a search term or a keyword that you can use in that page title. So that's the first thing. The second thing is competition. Now, just going back there, it'll also show you the competition, but this competition is from an advertising perspective, not from an organic search perspective. But what that will show you is, firstly, how much competition there is if you ever do decide to do advertising, but also, the higher the competition, usually the most valuable those search terms are. So you could consider using those. But I would try and focus on, if you think about competition, this is a good example. So, okay, let's use the word t-shirts like in this example. If you try to rank your page on the word t-shirts alone, it's going to be very difficult because, you think about all of the websites out there that have t-shirts, including some that are very wealthy organizations and multinationals. So you want to try and add some words to that to make it what we call a long tail keyword, and just make it more or less competitive. So more easy for you to rank, and also more easy for you to bring visitors to your website and convert them. So ideally a 3 to 5 word phrase. So, if you're just focused on a particular geography, let's say you're focused on, Perth, then maybe Perth could be one of those keyword terms that you use in that keyword that you've identified. So an example might be something like this. If you're a builder, you want to use something like Mount Barker Home Builder. If you're in Mount Barker, you build homes, you should maybe use that as a 4-word keyword phrase that you could use on your homepage. If you sell dresses, for example, you've got a particular type of dress, it might even have a brand that people search for, then maybe use that in the description or the keyword phrase. So in this particular case, I've gone for maybe a bit over the top, but floral, cotton, summer, maxi dress. Now, in that particular search term, I could rank for any combination of any of those searches. So floral dress, floral cotton dress, cotton summer dress, summer maxi dress, etc. So that's one of the reasons you also should use long tail keywords. If you're a service and you're based in a location, you might use something like that. So feature plus, say, service plus location, for example, versus just using the word service. So if you're an accountant in Perth, maybe a small business accountant, you could use small business accountant Perth as your keyword. I know it sounds very logical, but it's just telling you these things that you might not otherwise think about. Okay, so that's keyword research, and the competition thing, and the relevance is also important. So just for example, if you are trying to get people to your page for a particular keyword, then it needs to be relevant to the content that's on that page as well. Because that is used in a spammy way to try and attract people in some ways to websites that aren't necessarily about those things that they're trying to rank for. So just make sure that it's relevant. Okay, so another good place, or a good place to start, I did talk about Google Keyword Planner, but a good place to start for keyword research is just a search engine. So you just do a search for a keyword that you'd like to rank for, in this case, women's cotton linen clothing. And then what you can do is just scroll down and just have a look at what other people have got. So I'm just going to explain something here. So I'm just going to use the example below. So what you're looking at here, that blue part is your meta description, or sorry, your meta title. So that's what a meta title is. Your meta title is a search engine version of the title on your page. And the paragraph below that is your meta description. And it's a snippet of a description describing your page. Now, the reason why it's maybe slightly different to the actual title of your page and the actual description of your page is because on the meta title, you also want to sell your link over and above your competitors. So this is where you might use multiple keyword phrases and salesy type keyword phrases like afterpay available, free shipping, 25% sale on now, for example. So these are things you're not going to have in the title of your page, but you can add to the meta title. But we can talk about that a little bit further. So by doing this keyword research, you can see what people are using as usually the first word would be in that, my meta title would be their keyword if they're doing it properly, and their primary keyword. The second part would be their secondary keyword and maybe their third keyword. And you want to try and optimize it to make people want to click on your particular link. Sorry, I'll just get to your chat here. So time to do SEO. It's really, I think if you were to spend, it really depends on the website, but what I would do is focus on doing your home page. Now, if you can do some research on just your home page, for example, and when I say research, just do some keyword research, identify what is your home page about, versus what is your product page about, your shop page, or one of your products or services. This is your home page. So it's like your shop front. Why should people come in? So spend a bit of time on that and put some content on your home page. And I think once you've done the keyword research, and it might only take you half an hour or 10 minutes to do that, you could do a lot of this in less than an hour, really. And then it's really done. So what you're going to then do is optimize it. So maybe you're not getting them enough traffic for that particular search term. Maybe you can tweak it by adding another keyword into your keyword phrase that you're trying to rank for. There's a whole range of different things you can do there. So really, even if you were to spend an hour on just your homepage initially, making sure that you've identified that keyword, that's a really good start. And I think you would probably start to see some results. If you've got the right tools, like, a lot of these, or how to do it, and hopefully I can show you that briefly, it doesn't take long at all. And I'll show you exactly in an example here. So I think, if you can spend, once you've done it, it's really about just doing anything new. So when you add a new product or a page, and then it's just a process. You need to add that product anyway. So if you can just build in SEO into that, then it's taking you maybe 10% longer than it would to add the product anyway. So I would definitely recommend that sort of thing. But we'll talk about how you actually do it yourself. I'm just having some issues here with my video. So yeah, have a quick look at what your competitors are doing. Meta titles, their meta descriptions. Natural fiber women's clothing, linen clothing, women's clothing, Etsy, unbranded linen clothing, which is interesting, etc. And you can also see down the bottom what other people have searched for. These are actual searches. So, you can use that as fact, or you can put your cursor in there and Google will suggest some things for you. So there's a whole bunch of ways there, just there to get a list of some keywords that you might want to consider. Even if you just list them down as seed keywords, if you like, that you're going to work on, then I would definitely do that. Then, once you've done that, I would just go to Google Keyword Planner. It's a free tool that you can use as part of Google Ads. So you need a Google Ads account. And once you've got a Google Ads account, you just go into the tools and settings page there, and you'll have this keyword planner. Now, I'm just going to show you how that works here. Hopefully. Yeah, so just Google Ads, it's free and it's a great tool to use, tools and settings, and you just go to keyword planner. Once you're in keyword planner, I would do a page at a time. You can put 10 keywords in at a time that you want to work on. So discover new keywords, and just start typing them in. You can actually import them in through a spreadsheet, but if you've only got 10 to do, type them in there. And once you've done that, so try and put 2 or 3 or 4 or more if you can, because you'll just get better results. Sorry for my slow typing. Okay, so and then you just make sure you've chosen the right language and country, and then just click on Get Results. And it'll come back with some results here for you. So depending on what you're searching for, it'll give you some other suggestions, but you can filter by average monthly searches. So look for the highest search volumes, and you can see here 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000. It also shows you the competition as well, high or low. This is women's fashion, so they're all high in this particular case. But still, they give you some ideas of some things you might want to use. Along the top, you can broaden your search by adding some additional keywords, cotton top or women's cotton, women's summer, for example. And depending on what you searched for, you can also refine those keywords on the right. So whether it's the brand or what type of thing you're searching for, color, what material it's made from, for example. And then what you would do is just, you can actually select the ones that you want to use, and you can export them or add them to your Google Ads account, doesn't really matter, or just export them, put them in a spreadsheet, and then you can start to build a list of the keywords you want to use for each of the pages. Okay, so that's a good way to do Google research and to identify what those keywords are. Then what you need to do is start to optimize your content. So on-page SEO is really making sure about your keywords are in the right places. It's really that simple, because search engines aren't very smart, and they need to, at the moment anyway, they need to be told, or they need to see the keywords in certain places to get a clear picture of what your site is about. So, you know, we need to do on-page SEO for all of these particular pages, and we'll talk about how you can do that. So your home page, category pages, products, and your blogs and other pages like About Us and Contact, for example. And then there's the off-page SEO, which are all those links which we talked about. Now, I'm just going to show you in a really simple example, and then I'll show you in an actual example how you would do this on your website. So you've chosen your keyword for in this particular case, I'm a mechanic, I'm in Darwin, I'm called Tom's Mechanical. I've decided that the keyword is car mechanic Darwin. So I'm going to use that as my keyword. The first place I'm going to put that in is the page title. So I'm not going to call it home. I'm going to call that page car mechanic Darwin. And then I'm also going to change the URL. So it now has car mechanic Darwin in the URL. Even if it's the home page, that's okay. Then in the text or the description of that page, I'm going to put car mechanic Darwin in there too, ideally near the front. You know, if it's right at the front, that's ideal, but it's sometimes difficult to do that. And you want enough sentences in there that you can ideally put it in that content a couple of times at least. So you don't want to squeeze the keyword into a single sentence. It just wouldn't sound right. And it's spammy, basically. So what you want to do is have enough content in there that you can mention your keyword at least a couple of times. And you might also include some associated keywords. So I know that because I'm a mechanic, people are looking for brake repair often, and they're often looking for a roadworthy certificate. So I'm going to include that in the description as well and have a link from there, which puts a tick in my link box because I need links internally as well. And I'm going to then have a link from those pages, so from those words to the pages, the service pages for that particular service. And then for the image, I'm going to add the keyword to the image alt tag. So it's just a way for Google and Bing to understand, because they can't see images. So they need to look at the image alt tag to understand exactly what your website is about. So that's essentially it. So it's relatively easy to do. So sorry, I missed clicking through here, but basically just to put the keyword in all of those locations, use variations if you need to as well, if it sounds natural, and add some links. So I'm just going to, because I know that we're all on different platforms here, but I'm just going to go through this again. So you need to add the keyword to the URL. So if your product's Dashhound gifts, then make sure that's in that particular URL. It should be in the title of that particular page. It should be in the copy of that particular page. And it should be in the image alt tag. So if you've got a picture of a Dashhound and some Dashhound collars, then maybe you should have the keyword as the image alt tag for those particular images. And then you also need to add it to your meta title and meta description. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you need to do essentially. Now you do need to do the keyword research, and you do need to also maybe write a brief description, because you do need some text on there. Okay, so let's look at meta title and meta descriptions firstly. Probably doing this back to front, but we'll start with meta titles and meta descriptions. So like I said before, that's the meta title is the blue part of a search result, and the meta description is the paragraph underneath that search result. So they both have certain limitations, 60 characters for the title and 160 for the summary. The rule of thumb here is you want to try and use all of that real estate. Not too little, not too much. You don't want to go over that. You want to just use the right amount. So if you can use 160 characters, that's great. Now, to add this to your website, you need to add it to the head section of your HTML. Now, not everyone's going to be able to do that. That's understandable. So luckily, though, if you're using any of the leading website platforms, they make it really easy to do it yourself. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples here, and then I'll go through this all on one of these platforms in a second. So this is Wix, and if you click on the site menu and the page settings, and then click on the SEO Google tab, it'll ask you what the title, meta title, and meta description is. So it's saying, what's the page title on search results and browser tabs? So that's where you add that. In this particular case, Charlotte McCoy, spacer, wedding photography. What's the page about? That's where you would add the meta description. It also gives you an opportunity of changing the URL from home to, in this case, you'd probably add Charlotte McCoy wedding photography. So just a note on that, when you change the URL, some platforms will automatically redirect traffic from your old URL, in other words, home, to your new URL. Now, don't get me wrong, it will still show as your domain in a person's browser. You just need to make sure that your navigation stays as home, because you only want home in your navigation, but the page title changes, and you need to redirect traffic from your old URL to your new one. So platforms like Shopify will do that automatically. Other platforms, you might need to do it yourself. So just need just a word of caution there, but it is easy to do. So that's Wix. On WordPress, most people will use a plugin on WordPress. This one is Yoast, for example, but there's also other ones that you can use. And Yoast, it will give you, and all of them will give you the ability to preview your snippet or your Google snippet. In other words, what it's going to look like on Google. And you can then edit that to include your keyword phrase in that title and also in the description. Maybe add a spacer and then a salesy pitch about maybe your shipping options or the fact that you accept Apple Pay or whatever the case may be. Now, if you're on another platform, say Shopify, all Shopify pages and products allow you to edit the search engine preview or the website SEO at the bottom of the page. You just go to the very bottom and you can edit that and change the URL, change the title and the description. The home page you just need to do through the preferences section. And yeah, so that's a couple of them. I thought I also had Squarespace there, but they're all pretty much the same. So that's how you would go about doing it. Now, if you want to write a meta title and meta description, it's something like this. I'm just going to go back a step there. Keyword, secondary keyword, brand name, for example, or keyword, location, business name, for example. So there's a number of different ways you can use it. So in this particular example, this is Jessica's yoga studio. Her primary keyword is private yoga classes. The secondary keyword is New York City, and then there's her brand name. So that's how she's put it onto her meta title, and that's how it will show up in search results. But you could also do something like, depending on your product, Nike shoes, space with a dash, men's and women's, dash, free shipping, for example. But you've got to keep them all unique. So that's your meta titles and meta descriptions, and it's basically what your results will look like on a search page. Then you need to add your alt image tag. So this is basically enabling search engines to understand what your image is about, so it can then build a picture about what your website is about. And you need to add your keyword phrase to each image on the page. So if your home page is the keyword you've identified for the home page is XYZ, then you need to make sure that XYZ is in the alt image tag of every image on that particular page, on the home page, and likewise for other pages. So how do you do that? So once again, it's relatively easy. All you need to do in most cases is just edit or click on the image. This is WordPress. As you can see at the side there, it says, what is the alt text, alternative text? And you can put in your keyword phrase there and try and be descriptive as well if you can be, but making sure that, very importantly, you've got the keyword phrase in there. Same with, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's Shopify. So there you can see, you just add the image alt tag every time you just edit a particular image. And likewise for, I think this is Wix, when you edit an image, down the bottom it says, what's in the image? Tell Google. It's not only telling Google, it's telling Bing and any other search engine, but it's also telling visually impaired people what your images are about if they're using a reader, for example, and the reader will use these fields, the description field and the alt image tags, to describe what the page is about. Now, so just touched on this enough. I'm just going to quickly skim over this, 125 characters. Try and be as descriptive as possible, but also use your key term in there. Okay, and then there's some internal links that you need to add. So internal links would really be site, links within your site. So a good example is where you might have a product, you're talking about something, you refer to a product, you can then have a link from that product directly to the product page. So if anyone's interested, they can click directly on that. It also helps search engines navigate your site as well. And so they are important. And, they provide navigation from certain sections of your page. So whether it's your home page or your collections pages. And ideally, you should have something like 10 or so of these per page, if you can, particularly on your home page. External links we'll talk about at the end, closer to the end. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is how to briefly optimize a site. Now, I'm not going to do this brilliantly. I'm just showing you simply, what the process is essentially. So I'm going to optimize a product. Sometimes you get products that have nothing, and sometimes you have products that have something already. So this one has a title, it has some bullet points, descriptions, has some very good product images, which often is half the battle. So let's have a look at this. So that's basically what I've got to play with. In this particular example, this client likes to use the product code in the title. So I'm just going to leave them the product code in there. I wouldn't recommend it, by the way, but that's what we're going to do here. Now, so let's assume we've gone off and done some research about what the keyword is for this particular product. That's what it looks like on a search result. You can see it's probably not going to attract a lot of clicks. So how can we fix that? So the first thing is we're going to identify what the keyword is. Now, I'm just going to replace cardigan with a more appropriate keyword there. And very simply, I've just added a couple of words to that. But I could add a fourth word, really. So long sleeve cardigan. I know, pretty boring. I could have called it cotton, long sleeve, cotton cardigan, women's long sleeve cardigan, a range of women's cotton long sleeve cardigan. So that probably would have been better. But anyway, I've gone ahead and put that in there instead of cardigan. Now what I'm going to do is put my description in here. So I've gone off and written a little bit of a description, and I'm just going to paste that in there now. So ideally you want a good sort of conversational type description. So there I've now got this classic cotton long sleeve cardigan offers edge-to-edge style with just one button, neck closure, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I could probably improve that, but it's now got the keyword in there, and I'm going to bolden that just to make sure that search engines know that it's important. I would ideally like to fit it in there another time, but I can't. So what I'm just going to do is add some links here to some other keywords in there. So I'll put dresses, for example, and I'm going to link to the dresses page and put a title in that link. So just paste that link in there, and then I'm going to put a title. So dresses and skirts. I could probably optimize that a little bit better, but for now that's going to be fine. And I'm going to do the same with tops. So a link to the tops page. Just bear with me while I do this. The other information I'm going to leave there because it's useful. It tells them what collection it's part of, what it's made out of. But I could also write more descriptive term about those as well. Okay, coming close to the end of the webinar here, but let me just try and finish this if you can bear with me. So I've put that description, I've copied that keyword now. Now what I'm going to do is go down to some of the images, and I'm going to put the keyword in the alt image tag. So in this case, I'll click on that. It says add alt text. So I'm going to paste that in there. It's long sleeve cardigan. I'm going to save that alt text. And now I'm going to do all of those images. Okay, so I'll just do a couple, then I'm going to scroll forward. So you're going to have to do every image on that particular page. So I'm going to change it slightly so they're not all exactly the same. Okay, now I'm just going to get out of there, and I'm just going to move on a little bit here. So assume I did all of them. Now I'm just taking you down to the bottom to show you what that preview looks like now too. So I'm just going to edit that. I'm going to add a little bit of a salesy spin to this. So long sleeve cardigan, or I'm going to add a secondary keyword, cotton and elastin, for example. But I could also put, free shipping Australia-wide, afterpay available, Australian made, all of these things. You could add buy as an intent, when they're ready to buy. People sometimes search using those intent search terms. So a lot of things you could do. I would also edit that meta description to make it slightly smaller and change the URL to include the search term. So I'm just going to skip on now because assume I make all of those changes. That's all you really need to do. So I would go ahead and try and do that, particularly on your homepage to start with. Do the same with your products, with your categories and your collections. Try and start with your homepage, most importantly. Now, I won't show you how to do that now, but then what I then do is I go to Google Search Console, and Google Search Console has this nifty feature called URL inspection, and you can put your URL in there because I've just changed that URL, remember, so it's not going to be indexed anymore. This is particularly good if you change a page, you add a new page, you change the URL, you change pricing, it'll index the page. It tells you that it's not on there. Would you like it indexed? You can then request indexing and it puts it onto a priority queue. So I definitely recommend doing that. That's Google Search Console. So I do that as just a matter of fact. Now, the last thing I just really want to talk to here is about your backlinks. I'm going to have to cut this short a little bit, but suffice to say, backlinks you want to get from a range of ideally industry sites, people that are in your industry. It might also be a chamber of commerce though, but it could be a such and such industry association, or it could be such and such manufacturers association, or you're certified for a particular thing. You really need links from those organizations to your website. I know it's difficult to do that, but it is something maybe occasionally you should try and focus on whenever that opportunity arises. Or also get links from all your social pages pointing back to your website. These are backlinks. And very importantly, try and aim to get your business listed on business site directories, citation sites. Now, at the end of this presentation, I do have a link to all the resources that I talk about here, including a list of those citation sites. They include True Local, Local Search, word of mouth, all these sorts of things that you should list your business to, and that'll take care of the off-page SEO to a degree. And not just any sites. It must be, legitimate businesses that ideally have a higher authority than you do, a higher ranking than you do. And for your homepage, try and get at least 25 plus of these pointing to your homepage, at least 25. Whoops. Okay, so these are the citation sites I talk about. Do recommend getting that link and uploading your business details to all of those. The most important one of these isn't on here, and that's Google My Business. So you should probably do that as well. If you've never visited one of these sites, maybe go and visit truelocal.com.au. I won't go into it now, but they're basically just business directories, and they allow you to add your own business to that. You will need to verify your business and all of that. If you're looking for backlinks, another way to do it is maybe to get some guest blog posts. A good way to find opportunities to get guest blog opportunities is to search for Write for Us and then add the industry or topic that you want to write about. And you'll see a whole bunch of different guest blog opportunities arise. And that's just a great way to get links back to your particular website. So I did mention Google My Business. You should do that. If you haven't done that already, you can claim your business just by searching for your business as a start and then clicking on that Own This Business and claiming it that way. Or just go to or search Google My Business, and it's business.google.com, and add your business profile there. It's also a great way to get reviews if you do have a bricks and mortar to provide directions and map directions to your location. Okay, so that's essentially it. So backlinks, citation sites, Google My Business. I'm not going to talk about performance now. I think I've sort of done enough about that. What I would recommend is if you want to check your own website performance, use a tool like GTmetrix. It's because you can't use your own PC or browser because it's cached, and you're going to get a misleading feel for how fast or slow your website is. GTmetrix, you need an account so you can choose an Australian location. It's free. And then you can choose a user based in Sydney. You can choose what type of broadband connection they're on or mobile, and then get a feel for. I really, really do recommend that. If you've got images that do need to be optimized, then use a tool online like Tiny JPEG or Tiny PNG. There's lots of other ones out there, and just optimize your site using one of those. There's also batchcompress.com. I do also recommend using blogs to get rankings. So particularly if I won't go into this now, but if you're providing a list, maybe a solution, 6 solutions to this, examples, the 10 best of this, for example, or just an answer to a question, blogs are a great way to rank. So just quickly, my 12-step action plan for your SEO. first thing is to do some research, like I said. So just go and find one of those SEO audit tools. It could be SEO review tools or Moz or SEMrush or SEO Ability. Sign up to, you probably need an account, and just get, not a paid account, but just and get a feel for where you stand. Then go away and do some research for your keywords, which you need to do for every part of your website. And once you've done that and you've got your content structure right, start to develop your content around those particular, your keywords around that particular content structure, and write some quality content. So, particularly focus on those top pages first and good product descriptions and that sort of thing, but making sure you're using that keyword in that content and in that copy. Then write a good quality meta title and meta description, so when you show up on a search result, people are more likely to click on your link. Make sure you've got a good mobile friendly version of your website. And if it's slow, make sure you're compressing any of those large images using one of those tools like tinyjpeg.com. And while you're there, add those alt image tags, the keyword to each of those images for each page. Add some links, so this is just a process that you should go through where you're adding links between pages, but also links to your page. So if you can maybe identify 3 authoritative sites that you can maybe get backlinks for in your industry, that would be really good. But worst case, not even worst case, you should do this anyway. Submit your business to these citation sites. I think the one that I provide you there's 2 lists, 25 or 50 citation sites. Try and do 50 if you can, but you don't need to do them all at once. Just do 2 a week or 2 a day, whatever's you're comfortable with. And then set up, probably some of these things you should do it more at the beginning, but set up Google My Business and all your social pages, making sure that you've got the ability to like and share those content on your website and vice versa on social media. So you're sort of getting those social signals. Set up Google Search Console on Google Analytics. That should be probably more towards the beginning of this 12-step plan, but that's okay. And set that up. It's relatively straightforward. And then finally, this is really more homework, where once you've done some of these things, try to make it a regular thing where you're identifying a keyword topic that you can write a blog post about. And there are some tools that you can use. Jasper, or Java as it used to be called. There's also writer.me, that artificial intelligence writing tools that just help get the juices flowing and help you write some of that content. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. There's a link there. I can't copy that, unfortunately. I might be able to put it in chat. I don't know if I've still got it here. No, I did have it. I didn't. So you'll just have to copy that down. bit.ly/3v3hq4c. I think you need to get the uppercase, lowercase right there. So hopefully you'll find some of the information there useful. You've also got my email address there. If you want to contact me, ask me a question, happy to do that as well. So I'll just leave that up there. Hopefully you did get some value out of today. I know we only had an hour. I had to rush through quite a bit. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. For those, by the way, that are watching this and aren't part of the Digital Solutions program that you might see at the top of that slide, that's what this presentation has been about. It's about building skills and capabilities in Australian small businesses. So if you're not part of that, please just visit businessstation.com.au to find out more information about how you can participate in the Digital Solutions program. Other than that, thank you very much. If you've got any questions before you go, happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your time today. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing now.